The Fossores Chapter House is the world's first headquarters for Christian ministerial innovation, bringing preachers, leaders, and innovators together to collaborate on new liturgies, resources, and responses to the challenge of our times. This podcast explores the ever-changing era of perpetual upheaval, in which effective ministry requires constant imagination, creativity, and change.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on the Chapter House podcast. Today I'm joined with my three closest friends, Jacob, Kelly, and Melissa, and we're going to talk a little bit about our design team at Westwinds and also the team that really runs the Chapter House. It's really the three of them. And the reason we're doing this is because every time somebody comes to the Chapter House, they don't really want to talk to me, and they don't really want to explore the house even. What they really want is they want to know about these guys, which I don't actually think I'm overstating it. Everybody who comes here wants to know about the team behind the Chapter House, the team behind all the fun and crazy stuff we do at Westwinds. Many pastors covet this team. They covet these three. They try and hire away these three, and so far these three have been foolish enough not to say yes and take their escape. But I thought we might talk about what makes the team work, and what actually doesn't work, because I think we have probably more experience with that. So anyway, first, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell everybody what you do and how long you've been working together, both at Westwinds and the Chapter House.
I'm Jacob McGarry. I'm the media designer at Westwinds. So I do the live stream and the screen design, and most of the stuff in the auditorium that gets plugged in is things that I take care of.
Yeah, and here, what have you done here?
I did I ripped out flooring. I got memories of that the other day. Ripping out the floor in that room, ripping out the walls in that room that were like this thick, and then a lot of the floor intarsia engravings.
All the carvings and yeah. All right.
And the gym floor, for which I am not proud.
Wrecking the gym floor.
No, I put it in first. I put it in and then slowly pounded it to dust. Ground it beneath my heels.
Yeah. We had an idea too once that you and I were gonna make a room in the Chapter House that was like almost like an escape room, and it was going to be all video screens and picture frames and like a little mystery that people had to solve.
I have no memory of this place.
Yeah, well, we never made it, but it was a fun idea anyway.
That is a fun idea.
All right, yeah. All right.
It would have been cool to have something fun here.
Yeah, it's such a boring office building, the dentist office of a Chapter House. Yeah. Gals?
That's amazing. My name is Kelly Heath. I'm the worship designer at Westwinds. I've been in that position for almost 5 years. And then here, I've just, mostly helped destroy things and then paint. A lot of painting. And staining for sure. And the music studio downstairs.
Yeah. We have a recording studio down in the basement where we did some of the projects for Westwinds. We recorded a couple of scratch tracks. And in our retreat in February, because we have, with 4 DJs that'll be with us in February, counting Kels and myself, but Jamin and Andre, and I go, that's just like, I want to do something fun when we have all these people here.
Yeah.
And record things. And cool.
I'm Melissa. I'm the designer at Westwinds. So basically anything you see, I've designed or had worked with volunteers to design, also do the graphic design there. And at the Chapter House, I designed most of it.
Yeah. Why do you say most? Is that because anytime I did something and you didn't know about it, you're
like, I don't want credit for that.
No, we had people design the rooms.
Oh, right.
Which I, helped them with that to some degree, but you can't take credit for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I could.
That's true.
You're good at that.
Right.
Dave loves to love his own ideas.
I don't always remember that they're my ideas. I think that's a very defensible position.
That's actually
That's true.
All right, now.
I feel like you also have a lot of hate for your own ideas. But usually, it's like much like some of the shop owners in town, and you have a lot of just emotion coming at your both love and hate.
That's true. I have a love-hate relationship with several of the local businesses here, in that they both love that I spend money there and hate that they have to see me. The easy way to say it. Now, none of you guys started out in the roles that you have now. You started out as like a part-time video guy. You were making, commercials basically for Westwinds. Kels, you started out as the girl who photocopies music for the worship pastor.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound especially dignified. But and then Melissa, you started out working with kids as like the kids graphics designer, and then just designing just graphics for Westwinds, and then designing the whole kit and caboodle. And really the change was that I had a co-pastor at Westwinds for a long time. Gosh, I don't know, 12 years I think we worked together, John Bowles, Jabo. And Jabo did all the other parts of each of your jobs as is. And when Jabo left, rather than trying to find somebody who was skilled and talented like he was in the different directions, we split we split all of his job into three components: production design, music design, and then design. And you guys had huge growth over those first couple of years. What was that like? What was the hardest thing about stepping into, because Jay was very capable, very talented. What was the hardest thing, and what was the best thing about coming in after him?
Well, yeah, those were big shoes to fill, for sure. I mean, Javo, especially probably for me, the designing the auditorium was my biggest learning curve, because we don't just want stuff on stage, and Javo was a really good example of this. We want something in the entire room so that you feel immersed in it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was kind of switching my brain into figuring out how that works, and that was a big challenge, but also probably the most rewarding. So that might be both of my answers. Yeah,
big shift from thinking about stage design to thinking about a diorama or an environment. I think that's one of the things that sets Westwinds apart. One of the things that sets the chapter house apart is when you step in to either place, you feel like you're in a whole universe. Not just like you have something pretty to look at, but that you're caught up in the magic of it. You know? How about you guys?
I think the biggest challenge for me was switching from thinking primarily from a technical standpoint about what could we do or what our limitations were, to thinking from a design standpoint, which was more like what could we do, what do we want to happen, so that we're not just making sure that things function, but make sure that they preach, make sure that the lighting and the screens and the cameras all augment the message or preach a message that harmonizes with that.
Yeah, for me, I initially wasn't sure I wanted the job because it was so overwhelming. It was so big, and I had worked for John, and I really respected him. I learned a ton from him, and he had definitely started to pour into me and teach me things. So making that transition from what it had been with him to sort of owning my own ways of worshiping and owning my own ways of doing music was probably the biggest switch for me, because I initially had this we've always done it like this, and this is what everybody's familiar with, and this is what everybody loves. And so being able to sort of discover who I am as a worshiper and who I am in all of that, and then have the courage and nerve to do it, which Dave, you were really great about saying, you don't have to be like Jabo, you, whatever God has put inside of you, you're the conduit from here, out. It has to be Kelly shaped. It has to be, God-led and Kelly shaped.
Yeah. Then that was 5 years ago that we all made these changes, and I don't know that we functioned especially well as a team in the beginning. I don't know that it was a train wreck, but it certainly didn't click. It wasn't easy. It's not, things didn't flow naturally or effortlessly. So in those early days when we were sort of just getting started, what were the things that you found helpful, and what things sort of sucked?
I think I found it helpful how much freedom you gave each of us, where in our own area, we're always willing to take risks, right? So that's a big part of our team, is that we have an idea. It's not always the best idea, but we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it 100%. And having that freedom to be able to be creative and to figure out those things in our own way, that was a challenge, but also helpful.
Yeah, and at least for me, that was not fun at first because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do anything. And I didn't know how to work with you. And like, we just didn't have the understanding of like our personalities and our skills. Like, I feel as though Melissa knows now how to like leverage me a little bit. And then we know how to like work with each other and bring out the best in each other. And we did not have that at first. So for me, it was a lot of like sort of tiptoeing around going, can I do this? Can I try this? Oh, that got me in trouble. Okay. I won't do that again. And yeah, you're right. Now there's so much freedom. And I think Dave was always great at giving that, but I don't think I knew quite what to do with it at first.
Do you stop doing things when they get you in trouble?
No.
I think that what feels like the turning point looking back was the trip to Santa Fe that we took. Which was the start of a lot of common experiences, looking at a huge variety of different things. We went to Santa Fe to see Meow Wolf, which is produced in part by George R.R. Martin, and we saw a lot of other things there. And we took some volunteers with us, but having that common ground of going, here's a weird thing that one of us could not successfully describe to the others, that we now all share in common and can reference back to. And then compounded with like the New York trip and the trip to Arizona.
Yeah, I do think actually that one of the leadership decisions that I feel best about over the years is to stop going to church conferences, because you go to a church conference and it's not like they have no value, but the real value is not the person on stage presenting, because all they're really doing is giving you a very thin version of the most recent book they read or wrote or whatever. The real value of those is the camaraderie that you experience, either with people you go together with, you go out to eat and you talk about what you just heard or experienced or whatever, or you meet new people who are of like mind. And so years ago, I said, I don't want to go and do those anymore. Like, they're so expensive. You know, if the registration's whatever, $1,000 plus hotel, plus airfare, plus meals, if we just took that same amount of money and used it to curate our own experiences through travel, we pick a city, find out the things that we want to do in that city, and instead of paying one registration cost and then buying a journal with, you know, Hillsongs United on the cover or something, we spend our money elsewhere. The benefits have been huge. And it was actually at a Hillsongs conference, which I'm not critical of Hillsongs, I quite like them, but it was at a Hillsongs conference in New York, where Kelly and I and several volunteers, Kev, one of our worship leaders, Becky, one of our worship leaders, we went, and I realized I don't ever want to do this again, because I spend the whole time just like mad that I'm stuck, mad that they're sort of performing their thing on me or on us, and there's no engagement from us. And so that trip to Santa Fe that we took, where we experienced an interactive museum and a couple of art installations, and we played ping pong and went powerlifting and crossfitting and whatever, did all that fun stuff. That was so much better. There was so much more learning that happened, so much more raw material. And then, like you said, we did that again multiple times, which from the outside is really hard for people to understand. I mean, if you're a leader and you're in charge of people development, you go, oh, that would be better. If you're not in charge of people development, if you haven't had your bubble burst about going to conferences, if you're not driven by multisensory interactive learning, then those things they just seem like a waste of money. It seems like, you know, you're going to go and pay for your friends to go on a road trip, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. And I really do think that those shared experiences gave us all a shared vision for how worship could be different.
Vision really does feel like the thing that's primarily different about it, because even when I look back on the Story Conference, which was cool and unique, and I enjoyed being there, like I was happy that I got to go. When I think about that conference, what I primarily remember is the notes that I took about it, like the on paper thoughts that I had. Whereas with almost any of the other travel that we've done, I primarily think about like the ambitions that I have to do things in ministry based, you know, on what I learned there. What I want to do, or what we have done that's like Soul Cycle, or like
Soul Cycle was such a good experience as a way to think about kinesthetic spirituality and the mind-body connection.
Yeah, one of those things is so siloed. It's only happening in you, and then you can like tell it to us, but it's not, like you were saying, it's not the same to try and explain it to somebody. But the things that we're experiencing together, the vision that we're catching together, the way that we can process and respond in the moment and bounce ideas off each other. And it's so great to like look back and go, this totally permeated, like Meow Wolf, New York, Electric Forest. They totally permeated what we do.
Yeah. You can look back. I mean, it's not an immediate, within the next 6 to 12 months connection. But if you look back over the last 5 years, every trip we took, every concert we went to, every experience we shared has manifested multiple times, not only at Westwinds, but at the Chapter House. I mean, we've drawn on that stuff way more than I've ever drawn on a book or a conference or a TED Talk. Or the only parallel experience would be an experience at Lund Sweet's house or here at the Chapter House, where you're sort of just immersed in ideas over and over again.
And there's a lot less of Dave standing like this and pacing in the back of a church conference.
I think of myself as such a happy person until I go to church conferences. Like, wow, am I a curmudgeon? I am so sour. Oh, jeez.
You're like the bouncer of Christian thought. You're like, not these ideas. No.
Well, we went to Ben and Jabo and I went, Ben Redmond, one of the pastors that used to work at Westwinds, and John and we went to the Q conference in New York one year. And I remember leaving so irritated, and Ben chased me out in the hallway. He's like, "Why are you mad?" And the guy on stage was Andy Stanley, who's a great leader and he's a great thinker. He's great. I have no actual criticisms of Andy Stanley. "Why are you mad?" I go, "Because he's lying. He's up there lying. He's selling us these things work and they don't work. He's lying." I just thought it's so funny, but I feel like that, when you're presenting at a conference, you're giving somebody the thinnest, most bullet point, basic understanding of anything. It's stuff we all know. It's stuff we've all heard. I mean, unless you're 15 and working in youth ministry, it's not even, the footnotes of a John Maxwell book. So the content is so thin at conferences. It's so frustrating. And of course, and that's a big reason why I started the Chapter House. I want to be able to bounce ideas around and bounce them out early. It was a large part of those shared experiences too that made us begin to be, and then really forged us into really close friends. Because Melissa and I were friends, but we weren't really close friends when she started in her new role. And Kels and Melissa, you guys have been friends for a long time, but you hadn't done much together for like a decade. As kids and life couldn't pull you apart, and you didn't really know anybody. But it was those trips that made us really love each other, and that actually I think became one of our big hiccups, is that because we have so much fun when we're together, we crave one another's company, we want to do stuff together, and sometimes then you get really frustrated with the work, because the friendship can become a distraction. And I think over and over and over again, the thing that made us great friends was the work, and the thing that keeps us great friends is the work. And when we forget about the work, when we forget about the call of God in our lives, and we just sort of enjoy, then not only does the work suffer, but actually so does our friendship. Thoughts, questions, comments? Because I bet most people who are watching and listening don't have friendships like ours. And most people who are watching and listening really wish they did. So what advice would you give them?
Well, we're really good at enjoying things. So if you don't have that going for you, you can't be our friend.
Step one.
No, I think I definitely can see times where, we would just want to have fun, or we would be like frustrated, and I would feel frustrated in the meeting because I know as soon as we get through this, we can play games or go out and, eat dinner or whatever. And then I think I began to miss that. I began to miss having those conversations, because I actually do, I don't get that with most other people. So the fact that I can do those things with you guys is really special, and I don't want to take that for granted, and I certainly don't want to put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
It's such a big question, because we have people asking us about it all the time, but and I still don't think we have it all figured out. So
sure.
Sure.
I mean, I do, but
then you can teach me. You have lots to say about it. I know one of the things that we miss each other on sometimes, we're talking about working together, and then we want to we want to have fun. And so what's hard is sometimes we miss each other. Some of us are in work mode, and some of us are not. And so I think it's helpful when kind of at the beginning of our meetings we go, okay, this is what we need to get done, this is what we need to accomplish, and then we can joke around or whatever. Yeah. So that's helpful to set those, I don't know if you call them boundaries, set those expectations.
I think I'm the reason you need to set those boundaries. Because if I'm in work mode and you're not, or not you specifically, but any of you are not, I'm just like, so over this.
Remember how often you used to check out? You don't do that much anymore.
Oh, true. Kelly would vacate her body. Her spirit would depart.
You can see it happening.
Yeah. You're like, oh, Casper, the friendly ghost, please reincarnate so we can enjoy your perspective. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. I'm done with this, you guys. Wasting my time. What is this?
When you throw playing on your phone or typing on your computer. Like,
I was taking notes. I was like, great. Well, you all try and figure out this thing that I maybe don't care about. I'm going to do my work.
Well, one of the things that's peculiar about me is that I've learned a lot about how to be productive. I'm a very productive, very happily, enjoyably productive worker. And I really passed on that philosophy to you guys, which is to go 100 miles an hour as far as you can, as long as you can, and then when it falls off, you stop. Like when it's on, it's on. When it's off, it's off. And so when we're in work mode, we want to sprint and go and have our hair on fire, and be passionate and fervent and devoted. And then when we're not in work mode, we want to be playful and adventurous and mischievous and and the truth is, in a typical day, from whenever we get up to whenever we go to bed, you just can't be 100% game on in work mode all day, every day. It's not healthy. It's not realistic. And if you try, you're actually less productive. So when our team works best, I think, is when we all sort of cascade upon one another's work, and then we cascade upon one another's play. And sometimes, 2 or 3 people will sort of get a fire going, and then the last, 1 or 2 will jump on. Sometimes it's the other way, where 2 or 3 will start screwing around and get excited, and then we'll get distracted and we'll go play. But as long as we know that both of those things are going to happen, and as long as we know that both of those things are trustworthy and godly, then both of those things are spectacular. I mean, why wouldn't you want to experience high productivity, high creativity, incredible imagination and innovation, and love and friendship? Like, why wouldn't you want that? And I think understanding those sort of spiritual circadian rhythms of, work now, play now, has been really helpful. Yeah. Anything to add there?
I feel like the difference between the work and the play is not primarily the productivity of it, even. It's like the reliability of it. Like, if we go in with work mode, we know we can make decisions that are gonna work, that will function. But often when we're playing, then all of a sudden, like, something will happen and we'll go, oh right, this is an amazing idea. Like the Monday Thursday service that we designed, yelling at each other over super loud music in the backseat of the car. Like like 9 p.m. on Sunday on the way to the restaurant.
The upcoming, we're going to reenact the Lord's Supper on Monday, Thursday at Westwinds, and then
it wasn't the Monday Thursday service. It was the Good Friday service.
The Good Friday.
That's the one that we came up with in the car.
Well, anyway, Monday Thursday is going to be cool, but yes, Good Friday. Short version. We decided we should pray. We're going to pray. It's not amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Hey guys, I got this new idea. We're going to talk to God. Wait for it. Yeah. One of the things that I think most people from the outside get wrong is they misimagine the flow of our team. So when I talk with other senior pastors and other lead pastors, and they have an idea or they have a creative idea, usually what happens is the person in charge, the highest paid person on site, the hippo will have an idea and then come into the room and say to their worship leader or their designer or their media person, whoever's on their creative team, this is my idea, make it happen and make it cool. And then the people go and try and, please the hippo. And then the hippo will take all the credit. But that's not how it works for us at all. Sometimes I have to drive a little more. Sometimes I have to be a little more direct. But I don't want my ideas to be the ideas that we always execute. And I don't want the idea that I first present to be like the thing that actually shows up. I mean, we want all our ideas to be pliant. We want to tweak them. We want to deliberately leave room for your input. Was it easy for you to get on board with that? Did you ever believe me? Do you believe me now when I say those things?
Yes, I believe you when you say those things.
Yeah. Did you always believe me? Did it take you a second?
I think a little bit, like in the very, very beginning, you would say, like, I don't want the services to center around the teaching. Like, I don't want that to be the only thing. And I think for me, I was like, well, what then? like what are we centering around? So I think it took me a minute to learn what to do with that permission and what that could look like. But yeah, the way that you have led us has been amazing, because you've given permission, you've given input and feedback and training, you've given freedom to make mistakes. You've really held high the value of iterating, so that our first idea is probably not our best idea, but what do versions 2, 3, and 4 look like? And then, yeah, I think we have gotten to the point where one of us feels comfortable going, we want to try this. Like, I definitely feel like, hey, I want to try this new thing musically. And you'll be like, great. And you will work with me to figure out a way to make it happen and to make it make sense. And to make it, meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, meaning is the thing that I feel like I can bring, because so much of meaning comes from Scripture, and so when you guys have a cool idea, I go, I don't usually want to say no. I want to always say yes, but then it's incumbent upon me then to dive into the Bible and find a precedent for it, to find some provenance, to find some thread that'll be redemptive, and I think that's really fun for me. I get to play, Bible detective.
This past Christmas Eve was a really great example of that, where I had two sort of like ideas, but they weren't coherent. They would have been cool, but there wouldn't have been like people crying or feeling moved. There wouldn't have been any transformation if it had just been, great, we have a virtual orchestra and people are in the catwalk. Yay. Neat. Yeah, exactly.
Feathers.
Yeah, I really like how comfortable we are with having, we call it the version 4. Like, you never stick with one version, but we only have 4 versions usually, so that we can have an end point, so that we don't keep just coming up with ideas. But I mean, we've been working together for 10 years, and so I feel like
Who's our friend anniversary on Facebook this week? Did you see that?
No.
Yes, 9 years we've been friends on Facebook.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
Facebook. I didn't share it.
He's
That's
like,
fair.
I am ashamed of this friendship.
Siri, delete memories.
But anyways, yes, I love that we're comfortable with that, because that we get such a better product of what we do, and we're able to feed off of each other. Like, I can say something to you, and you're like, well, okay, what about this? And so that those ideas get better and better and better.
Yeah, we refine them. Yeah, to explain the version 4 concept, because people might not know what that is or how it works.
Mostly, we actually don't do it with each other as much, but we've kind of had that with volunteers, so that we can set an expectation for them that what they send us the first time is probably not what we want. And so we can go back and forth 4 times and keep kind of editing what we're doing depending on. I probably do that the most with graphic design. But so then they have confidence that once we get to that version 4, that we can stop and we're not just dragging them along.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to function better, and it's going to work more with all the other moving parts that they might not know about. And and even no matter how much you communicate healthy expectations, no matter how much you cast vision, no matter how much you draw clear boundaries and clear parameters, usually that version 1 is pretty rough. Like we tell our volunteers, hey, give us a rough prototype. Don't spend a ton of time on version 1, because chances are something got lost in translation. So let's just get the rough shape. Let's just get the big blocks. Let's just get the the melody of a new song that we're writing in the chorus, and let us let us feed back before you put 100 hours into something, because that's so much cause for hurt feelings. And while we don't do that a ton with each other, we still do that. And we're doing that right now with the project that we have coming up for music for Holy Week. We're doing that with the project with the script for Easter Sunday, and you want to constantly be tweaking. So that the ideas are refined and that you invite critique. And that's another thing that I don't see many leaders soliciting critique. And they'll say that they're really open to it. But I mean, it's really scary to offer critical developmental feedback to the person above you. And if you're the person who's soliciting feedback, it can be really hard to accept when you hear critical feedback from a subordinate that shows what they really think, because sometimes it's really mean. I don't know that you guys are ever mean, but I certainly have had feedback in the past, where you have staff members who go, actually, I think your preaching is really boring. You're like, whoa, that's not the kind of critique I was hoping for. Like, that wasn't, change your middle point or something. That was like, because if we don't learn how to give good notes, if we don't learn how to give good critical feedback, then when we're inexperienced with it, we often tend to be hurtful and personal. And then the person who was ready to ask for critique now is never going to ask for it ever again. That book, Creativity, Inc. by Ed Catmull, the Pixar CEO, he has a great section on how to give good notes. And really the idea is to be as specific as possible and always offer a couple of suggestions for how we might improve it, and then never hang on to the fact that they might not take your suggestions. They might not even, the creator might not even agree with them. So, what are you most proud of? Like specifically, what projects have you done or have we done that you're most proud of?
There's so much.
Yeah.
So give me a minute to sift through 5 years of The first thing that comes to mind is Christmas Eve.
This is the most recent one, yeah?
Yeah, the most recent one.
Well, tell everybody what it was like, because probably most of them wouldn't have seen it.
Christmas Eve was told from the perspective of heaven, using only the, how do you say it? The writings of John.
The nativity story from heaven's perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the music were like all our own arrangements. And then we had filmed and recorded an orchestra, and Jacob made really cool virtual videos of the orchestra. Melissa put me 8 feet in the air on a platform. But the whole thing, like just visually and musically, just all came together. And we had a choir in the catwalk. So it was just probably one of the most theatrical things that we've done together. And probably, I think, one of the biggest, like where we really all had to level up in some way.
Yeah, I think that was my first thought, probably partly because it's the most
Partly because
recent
it's
thing.
right there, yeah.
But also it felt like all of us, we all maxed out, which I think we do that, but we kind of had our specialty and we were able to add, like we worked together really well.
Right.
And it felt like, I don't know how to put that into words. Like it just felt like, what?
My stomach is gone.
Oh,
Good.
Sorry.
You thought someone was starting a chainsaw.
You mean that for Christmas Eve we were playing to our strengths?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
and we were pushing at our developmental ceiling. We had to get better in order to pull it off.
Well, like normally it's one of us doing that. Like you did the prayer garden, and Jake and Dave and I came alongside you, but that was your thing.
Right.
So yeah, that was just the first thing that felt like it could not have happened had not all 4 of us.
Well, and the other one that I was thinking of is ASR.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I felt
Before you get onto that
Yes.
one, because I go, I don't feel like I hit my ceiling for Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was a really cool experience for me because it required some theological chops that stretched me. But all of my work for Christmas Eve was done like months in advance so that you guys could have something to work from. And so then Christmas Eve was mostly me trying to look as grandfatherly as possible and then just reading a script, and I thought that was like, that was really meaningful. I really enjoyed it, but that was, of all the big projects we've done, that was the one that stretched me the least, certainly when it came time to the presentation.
Whose fault is that?
Well, yeah, no, I think I think it's healthy for the lead pastor to take a back role. Not always. You got to lead. You can't always lead by being a footnote. But I just think that was really gratifying for me, was to, in essence, provide a platform for you guys. Because I don't think it would have worked as well if somebody else was narrating or reading a script. Because our congregation needs to see me. They need to feel secure. Like, okay, it's not some weird, where's Dave? It's not, why didn't Dave do anything? Like it's really stabilizing for the people. And it was really fatherly, but all the spectacle, all the magic was not me. And I think that was really cool. I think that was really important. Whose fault was that? All right, sorry, I interrupted just because I wanted to highlight that it was not not the four of us, it was the three of you.
And maybe that's why it felt that way, because we
us.
had to step up our step. Like, we weren't relying on you as much.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big growth for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about ASR, because this is a good one.
Well, what I was linking the two because it really felt like Christmas Eve, we expanded ASR. Like, it felt like that was kind of what we were trying to do a little bit.
All right, well, what's ASR? You tell people.
I don't know that I should be the one that explains it. Great.
should.
Yes, I
Start with All Saints Rave and go from there. See, I'll tell you what to do.
We held ASR, All Saints Rave, the night before Halloween. I guess it's Halloween. It's at midnight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we wanted to do a church service that was completely different, that no one had ever experienced before. So Kelly and Dave DJ'd, and that was incredible. You picked how many different songs that you sampled from?
Oh my gosh.
There were so many.
I don't know.
So we picked samples from a lot of popular songs, and Dave preached over it or in between them. And the experience, it's hard to put into words. I redid the room.
It was a tiny room, right?
It was
like
a tiny room.
The smallest room in the
Fit-
church.
How many people did we end up having
Well,
come?
normally we have
80.
12 children in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had 80. It was
Something like that, yeah. It was close
Yeah.
to you.
But what are the rough dimensions? I mean, it's like 40 feet
It's
long,
like the size
50
of this.
feet long.
Well, yeah.
It's like it might be 50 feet long by 10 feet wide.
It was like the tiniest doctor's office waiting room you could imagine.
It fits two church tables.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have it's 12 kids.
Right.
And it's
And we built-
maybe
And we
12
put you guys
Yeah.
on the benches. And we
That's
built a
right.
railing around it so that you
That's
wouldn't fall
right.
off.
So we occupied like 2 feet.
Right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
we
yeah.
did that on purpose because we wanted to fit as many people as we could so it felt intimate. And we only invited specific people because we knew everyone wasn't going to enjoy what we did.
Right.
Not enjoy. Some people were gonna outright blast us. For it. Yeah. But yeah, we wanted to find out if you could have unreserved fun at church, because when people say church should be fun, what they really mean is you should love the songs that we play that are by Christian people for the purpose of corporate worship, and maybe we'll do a cover tune, gasp, and it'll be U2 or something. That's you should enjoy church because you can come in flip flops, or you should enjoy church because you can have coffee. And you think, well, these are all things I do at home. Like I don't need church to.
That's just church not being unpleasant.
Yeah, that's just church not sucking. That's not fun church. So we thought, what if we just dial it all the way up to 11? And so we picked all the funnest, partiest, danciest songs from the Black Eyed Peas to Macklemore to a bunch of dubstep, Arias. Who's the girl that you really like? The rap girl that you
Snow
really
the
like?
product
Snow
that
the
I worked
Product.
so hard to fit something in there for that. Yeah.
Yeah, to like 50 songs like Wipeout and Shout and Phil Collins, Air Tonight. I mean, just anything, like all the white girl wedding songs, you know, I mean, all that stuff. And we blended them all together, and instead of interjecting preaching in between them, because that was our first idea, it's like we'll play a couple of really neat songs and then Dave will preach for 2 or 3 minutes. Instead, I just preached in all the parts of those songs where there was no singing. And we used low pass filters and we used breaks, and so like there was never a sermon. The whole thing was a sermon. And there was never music. The whole thing was music, and it was music with champagne and umbrellas and balloons bursting and confetti and broken tambourines and mosh pits and then really holy moments with candles and vigils and we wrote everybody personal notes of blessing and edification and encouragement. We gave everybody masks and then wrote words on their masks so that when the black lights came down, the black lights came on, everybody had a promise written on their mask that they could only see in the dark, you know. And it was the whole thing. We thought it would take about an hour and a half. I think it was 40 minutes long, which was sort of embarrassing, you know. But the whole thing was unrestrainedly celebratory.
People were dancing.
Yeah.
They were cheering. They were shouting, clapping. We were all dressed up like it was the 1920s.
Yeah.
We also had so many amazing sparks. Like I loved how we did communion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With champagne and macarons.
Macarons,
Do you want to explain the spark line, or you always love the spark line? Do you want to explain it?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I do love the spark line. So the idea of the spark line was that we wouldn't go. Was it 30 seconds or 60 seconds?
I think it was 20 originally. Every
it was
20
20,
seconds.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Three per
every
minute.
20 seconds, something new would happen. Something would change every 20 seconds. And more usually more than just like a new song. Maybe something as dramatic as like kicking from one genre to another or something. But like suddenly the room is filled with bubbles, and then suddenly people are passing champagne bottles all around to take communion, which really helped it feel cohesive. Like it wasn't like there was a moment where there was cool music. It wasn't a moment where the preaching was really meaningful. There wasn't a moment where something neat happened. There wasn't a person that was dressed up cool. Like the whole thing was just like floor to ceiling amazing for 40 minutes in a small space. But that was an amazing way to design that so that we could just max it out. We could just go, here are our boundaries, and that's just cram it full of stuff. Versus, we have 500 people. We can buy them each something worth $2 as a takeaway.
Yeah, but we really did everything from costumes to costume changes to the very dramatic lighting changes, and it was still to this day, it was the funnest experience I've ever had at church, and it was the service of which I am the most proud. It was the preaching of which I'm the most proud.
There are multiple people that still say that was their funnest experience, full stop, like in life.
Yeah, it was really great. And then we'd been doing a lot of experimenting with spoken word. I just want to get to be a better preacher, and so I like, what are the some of the great black preachers, T.D. Jakes, E.V. Hill. They have this cadence that's not reproducible if you're white. If you're a white guy and you get into this black preacher's rhythm, it seems fraudulent. So I was like, well, what's the white guy version of this? Like, what's the white Canadian tattooed guy version of this? And so we've been experimenting with different ways to play with phrases and rhyme and do spoken word. And we overreached a few times because there were a couple other experiences where it just got a bit much. It gets a bit old, So the All Saints Rave was a great gear for me where I realized exactly how far I could push it and when to back off and when to fall into it and when not to. And because it was live as opposed to pre-recorded, then I could be watching the people in the congregation and just look for any signs of annoyance or eye rolling and then immediately back away from what I'd prepared or lean into it more. And it was really cool. Did you start to say something?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. How about you? Favorite experience? Thing that you're most proud of?
I was gonna say I was when you said that I was gonna say Christmas Eve or ASR, and then I was pretty sure that was what you guys were gonna talk about.
Yeah.
So I think variety is up there for me, just because it's so different.
Good call,
I tried to think of something that was different from from those two. So variety was where we structured the Sunday morning liturgy like a variety show. So we had interviews. You presented in sort of a John Oliver style.
Yeah. Which I really liked, but I don't think anybody else did.
I really liked it. We did music differently, I think, right? We had the band more like the Roots.
Like a late night band,
yeah.
So they were kind of over on the side. Well, you divided the stage into like 4 different vignettes, 3 different vignettes?
It was thirds, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had like the music, and then you had the desk, and then you had the place
we
where
played games. I forgot about that.
we did play games. That was so fun for me to come up with all the games and interview people. But
yeah, that one felt good, I think, just because like we took something that didn't seem like it was gonna preach, and I think it still did. I don't know that it was. I don't know that people look back on that time as a time of great spiritual reformation and transformation. but I still am really happy with how much we made it function.
Yeah. And the disappointment for me was that every church does a late night talk show sort of format at some point, and so,
really.
Oh yeah, that's super common. Yeah. So
is this something they did 20 years ago?
This is something they also did 20 years ago. Yeah. So I mean, so for me, I go like, all right, because I've never done one, and because we've never done one, then it was new for us. But I was always a bit of a poopy pants about it, because I was like, everybody does this, But it was fun to try and make it fresh, like we had a local comedian, Scott Clow, who opened every service with a monologue, and that bombed horribly, which was really funny to just go like, he's a great comedian, this is not working. And then the John Oliver preaching style was good. I really liked John Oliver, like last week tonight, and so that I just started downloading scripts of his talks, of his main stories, and they were in it from 9 to 11 minutes. And when you read them on the script, he'll say something really insightful and poignant, and then say something totally outlandish, and it's great, and then it's funny, and it's great, and it's funny. So that's what I parroted mine after. And people in our church, I think they reasonably find me funny, but they didn't like that back and forth so much. It was just a weird gear for them, where they either wanted to have all the funny up front and then get into the meat and potatoes, or they just wanted the funny stuff to stop. Which was just fascinating.
Did you correct that from week to week? Did you?
Yeah, I made tweaks. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because some of the more outlandishy kind of stuff, John Oliver will say really crazy things about somebody's appearance, or he'll make really nonsensical comparisons that are so overblown as to be ridiculous. So we dialed some of that back, but I don't know that I ever hit the tone that I was happy with.
I think the fact that you would respond to that and take that feedback, I think that, when you're like, every church does a week, I think not every church is going to respond to what's happening. They're going to be like, no, this is this cool thing we made for you, and if you can't appreciate it, congregation, then you guys are stupid. So the fact that's in the church we see, that we want our congregation to feed back to us, and we want them to be a part of it. So I think that makes us unique, and that we did that in variety. And
that is one of the things that's really important to me and to us, is that it's a participant centered model. It's not a presenter centered model. And I feel like so much when you go to church, when you go to wherever, the church is being done to you. Now we will sing this song, and if you're a good Christian, you will sing along. But if you're a great Christian, you'll raise your hands. Doesn't matter if you like the song. Doesn't matter if the song's not your style. It's you. I am doing this for you. Appreciates. We will have children's ministry, and you will put your kids in so that they don't make any noise, so that they will behave, and you will appreciate. And now the pastor will get up there, and maybe he's mean, or maybe he's unkind, but you daren't leave in the middle of it to use the restroom, or to take a phone call in the lobby, or because you're whatever. It's we inflict church upon people. And Edwin Schlossberg wrote that book, Interactive Excellence, that we all read years and years ago. Great book. It's about 1 cent on Amazon right now, because it's out of print. But he said that the quality of the experience is defined by the quality of the participation, not the quality of the performance. And so much of church, if we're honest, is a performance. And then because we do a good job performing, we just want people to like it. But not everybody's going to like it. So it's really important for us to be grooming the people, listening to the people, responding to the people, watching the people in real time, because we're their pastors, we're their shepherds.
Yeah, it's an interesting line between taking their feedback, but also we can't please everybody.
Right.
So it's always that back and forth with how much do we listen and how much is still us.
Yeah.
And because we don't want to change that.
Right.
And yeah, so it's a dance back and forth, I think.
Mm-hmm. What were you trying to say?
I was going to ask you what your favorite thing was, or the thing of which you were the most proud.
Well, let me say I'll tell the things I'm most proud about the three of you. How about that? Because I like all the things. When Jabo left, again, we asked Kelly to step in as the interim worship designer while we looked for somebody. We were doing a national search for a new worship pastor, and she threw her resume in the ring. And we had multiple people come in and audition for the role of worship pastor. And I just keep thinking, like, every time somebody would come in, I kept thinking about how difficult that would have been for Kels to watch somebody else apply for a job and that she wanted, and she had to support them. Like, she was still the music director. So-and-so comes in, pulls out their acoustic guitar, starts to lead worship, and Kel's job that day is to make them sound good. And if she's really successful, they might get a job that she wants. And during that whole process, she developed her first recording project and wrote a bunch of new songs and led our people through that. And that just, I can't be any more proud of the character that I saw and the gumption, the grit for all that. It was so cool. It was so cool.
Thank you.
And you've done a lot of other cool stuff since, but I still think that was a standout moment of real strength. And it got you the job. So next time, be lazy if you don't. If you don't want the next 5 years like this.
You were so close to falling into like the quiet homeschooled girl trap of just always being in the shadow and pretending to be okay with it.
Pretending to be okay with it.
For you, Jake, I was most proud of Christmas Eve, this past Christmas Eve, because the production design, like the sound lights tech, was so much better than anything you'd done before. It was so professional, and we'd had a few hiccups up to it, but the way you executed all that, the way you led your teams, the demeanor with which you presented, it was so good. And you had clever ideas, you had innovative uses of screens and lights, but it was the execution. The execution was just flawless. And I love that you're an idea guy, and I love that you're bull in a china shop guy. But that day you were a maestro. It was really cool. I was really proud of you for that.
Thank you.
And Melissa and I probably have the most shared experiences, and I'm most grateful to you for the chapter house, because this is my dream come true. I love it here. It's so great, and to see people come from all over the world, and to see the lights go on and the dreams awaken in them when they're at Hogwarts, it's really cool. But I think I was most proud of you for the garden path. So years ago, Melissa turned the lawn of Westwinds Church into an experiential prayer garden. And there were 6 or 7 different prayer booths, temporary prayer booths that people made. One was kind of like a aviary or a giant birdhouse, and people would go in and have different spiritual experiences. One was like a greenhouse. I almost said an outhouse, but no, greenhouse.
Experience
Yeah.
that here.
And one was a prayer labyrinth, and just the scale of it, the number of volunteers that we had. Those were the first time that you ever agreed to be on video, because I hijacked you.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah. I did. Melissa thought
did
we were
not
going.
work.
Melissa thought we were going out for lunch, and instead I drove her to a location where there was a camera crew and a sound crew, and made her get out and wouldn't take her for our lunch meeting until she made a video.
You have grown a lot in your video skills.
I think we learned hijacking me to do something like that does not work.
It clearly did. It did work.
My first one was horrible.
Yeah. Well, there were some beeps that we had to beep. But the beep was happening. That was pretty great. And for myself, I think the thing I'm still. I mean, I love the number of things I've been able to do. I love the wide variety of things I've been able to do. I still think the thing I'm most proud of is the glimpse game. I mean, maybe the book, then down to extra. I'm really proud of the prayer book, but the glimpse, the mechanics of the prayer card game, just like because I just anytime I do something that doesn't center around me, I'm really happy about it. Like somebody else can pick this up, somebody else can do this, and they're going to hear from God, and God's not going to sound like me. God's going to sound like them. Like that feels like a huge win. And hugely proud of Holyphonics. Hugely proud of all Saints Rave. But yeah, I think maybe Glimpse. Yeah. How about advice? If somebody was to try and put together a team like ours, I mean, they're not going to have the same chemistry either. They're not going to have the same flavor. But if they're trying to put together a team with the same high functionality, high chemistry, what would you tell them to do?
I think go into it trusting that you'll do a high volume of things so that you're not overly concerned with your first thing or your second thing. Yeah. Both in the planning stage which we talked about this a little bit, but like we don't when we're presenting ideas, we're not holding them up on a silver platter. We're like chucking them out of a deck and just going, try this one. What about this? And then if somebody doesn't like it, then you don't get your feelings hurt. But similarly with Variety or with Church Records or a ton of the other stuff that we've done, we just like there's no fear that what if we do something cool and then it's not good and then we're not allowed to do it anymore. Right. There may be some administrative backup that has to happen for that to be true, but just the fact that we go like I want this Holy Week upcoming to be amazing, but I've done 5 and I'm gonna do 5 more. So I'll get another chance.
Yeah.
I think knowing and finding your flavor, I guess. So Dave, you're our leader, and you want people that you can have fun with. You want people that you can work with, and so that's your flavor. And so all of us, the thing we have in common is our love language is teasing. So finding those things that you can have in common, and we all love that, and we were able to actually get through a lot of hardships and things maybe we don't agree on, just because we can be light and make fun of each other for it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think, like you said, finding your flavor, not forcing or not trying too hard to be like somebody else or like something else. And then allowing yourselves to be passionate, but knowing that you're still going to be loved for that. Like Melissa and I don't always agree about everything. Sometimes we butt heads pretty significantly. But I know she's still going to love me. I know she's still going to love me. I know she's still going to be there for me. I know at the end of the day, she has my best interest at heart, and that she sees things in me that I don't even see in myself. And I know that about all of you. Like, I trust all of you like that. So if you're really pushing hard against something, I won't back down. But but if I get overruled, even if I still think I'm right, I know now to like trust you guys and to trust the process and to trust the fact that like there is room for my passion, but that we're all passionate about these things and that we all bring something to the table that is unique and special, and we trust each other in that.
Yeah. For me, I think the thing, if you really wanted a great team, you cast a big vision. And you put the emphasis on the vision, not so much on the team. And I think some of the mistakes I made early on were trying to figure out, if I can just figure out how to get Kelly and Jacob clicking, our team will function better. But the more I would focus on Kelly and Jacob, or Kelly and Melissa, or Melissa and Jacob, or me and Jake, or whatever the combination was, or just Jake.
Sounds like I was really problematic.
We have a meeting today, right? The more I'd focus on I'm
going to click with you so hard.
The more I focused on the people instead of helping the people focus on the vision, the more it just felt like we got quagmired. And I don't know that I ever think of people as problems to be solved, or I just don't think of people to be fixed. I mean, we're all used cars. We're all a little screwed up, that's fine. But I know when I focus on chemistry, I don't get it, and I don't get the vision. When I focus on the vision, it draws people together and starts to spark and create electricity. And by vision, I really think you got to get more specific than just making disciples. I really think you got to get more specific than just having great worship or the teaching landing. I mean, I really think you got to get down into like how do we specifically want this experience to feel? What are the emotions we want people to? What new insights? What vein of theological depth will we mine for this particular thing? And the more specific I can get about those things, the more it ignites the imagination of these guys, and so that together we all come up with ideas. And one of the things that we used to do that we don't really need to anymore because it's second nature, and you alluded to this, is we used to say before we came to every meeting where we were going to plan or dream something up, we used to have a Slack channel, and we said we have to have 100 ideas in this Slack channel. You each have to come up with 33 ideas in this Slack channel before we even show up to the meeting. Because again, out of those 99 ideas plus whatever few that I contribute, I go, there's going to be 20 great ones, not 2. And nobody's going to get their feelings hurt if we don't pick one of the 19 that aren't, there. So I think focusing on the vision, and honestly, if I could say anything, I'd say don't be afraid to love the people around you. You're not perfect; they're not perfect. Love them anyway, and before they ever prove themselves to you, before they ever love you back, just decide right away, these are my people. And come hell or high water, I'll do anything for them. And that doesn't always work out, but it's worked out with you guys. I'm glad. It may never work out again, but I'm still, because of you bums, going to stay on the same trajectory. So, well, any last thoughts? Going once, going twice? All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Chapter House podcast. We'll be back next week with, I don't know, something exciting.
Great vision.